Michelle Isenberg owns and operates Habitat Solutions in Alabama. She has over 25 years of experience in forestry herbicide business. Her company primarily executes turnkey application work for both aerial and ground application. Michelle is a past president from 2017 and 18 and 07 and 08 with the Alabama Invasive Plant Council. She was one of the founding board members of the council. And Michelle, we welcome you to the program.
Okay, great. Everybody can hear me okay? Yay. Am I too loud? Let's not be too loud. We need to be quiet. Yeah, thank you for that intro, Tim. Thank you, Lee and Billy, for having me again at AFOA. I was updating my presentation this morning. It's been since 2015. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute. So I've been here since 1995. I graduated from the University of Missouri with a wildlife degree, and they brought me down here to rep the product arsenal. I did that for 13 years, and then I went out into a partnership with some partners, and then I went completely out on my own on 14. So I am the CEO, and I'm the janitor, Bobby. I got to make the mess, and I got to clean it up all the time. But so what I did was I started calling on industrial companies, and then I started calling on consultants and landowners across Alabama, northern Florida, and South Georgia. So I've seen a lot of landscape. I've seen a lot of different properties, lots of different ways to manage property. And Lee asked me to come and talk a little bit about herbicides today and try to break it down for you. Herbicides is a whole world in itself. It's a complicated world. It's something you got to spend a lot of time on and think about, and that's why there's professionals out here to do that for you. We don't expect anybody in here to be a professional at this, because it's just like going to a doctor. You go to a doctor for a reason. You have a problem with your knee, you have a problem with your arm, and they're gonna tell you how to fix it. And then they're gonna write a prescription for you because you're gonna need this and that. And that's essentially what I do out here. So the vehicle that I get a lot of work done is mainly through helicopters, but we also do groundwork too. So when I say it's a whole big world, it came from the crop business, and it came over into forestry, and we do it in rights of way, we do DOT. So a lot of herbicides are used all across the US, they're used all across the world. We were greatly impacted by COVID, as everybody in this room was, of how we got our work done, how we sourced our chemicals. We're just now starting to come out of that phase, but inflation has hit our business just like it hit anybody else's business. And last I checked, I can't go buy a Ford F-150 for what I could 5 years ago. So that's why I got 414,000 miles on that joker. So let's see, forward, there we go. So I mentioned we brought forestry herbicides across from the crop business. So the way a forestry herbicide comes to this market, the way it happened 30 years ago, is it was owned by pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies would screen a chemistry for human consumption. If it didn't make it through human consumption, then it went over to the greenhouse. And on the greenhouse side of these companies, they would screen them to figure out if it's gonna go to row crop, if it's gonna go to the Midwest, are we gonna do corn, are we gonna do soybeans? If it didn't hit in that market, then it came over to the specialty markets. Is it gonna go to turf? Is it gonna go to right-of-way? Is it gonna go to forestry? So when you take a single molecule and you try to bring it down to use for a consumer, it goes through a very extensive process. There's a lot of money involved, and those companies have to recapture that money on all the research that they spent the time and money to get that chemical to market. So when I came out here in '95, so I am beginning my 30th trip around the moon this year in forestry. We had the silvicultural co-op at Auburn, and that was where industry belonged to the co-op along with universities, and they screened herbicides to figure out what we can use to maximize the growth of pine. Because in '95, that's what we were focusing on. We were focusing on pine. And I don't want anybody to think I don't realize that this market has changed. This market has changed. And I only expect more change over the next 10 years and 15. But where herbicides play out in forestry is in the pine market. We can do something in the hardwood market. It's very difficult. It's much more complicated. It's hard to grow hardwoods. So I like to focus on pine and why we're doing it and why we've done it. This is a really old graph, but this is the meat and potatoes. This is the bones of why we use herbicides in forestry. As you eliminate hardwood stems per acre to grow pine, your DBH, your growth on your pine is going to go up exponentially. Back in the day, Union Camp did this extensively. If you all know who Union Camp was, they grew pine trees. They did not want any competition out there. And I know things have changed. A landowner may want hardwoods out there. A landowner has other objectives than just growing pine. So that's why things have changed. That's why we have to kind of change what we're doing with herbicides and how we're utilizing them. But this is the meat and potatoes of why we control hardwoods, is to maximize the growth of pine. This is an old slide. This is Dr. Miller. He was at the Forest Service in Auburn for his career, and he went out there and dug up the soil around a couple roots of trees. The pine is at the very top. Gotta make sure, there we go. That's your single pine stem, and you have your roots painted in red, and you got a hardwood stock here, you got a hardwood stock here, and all the roots are painted in white. So it's not always what you see above ground, what's going on a track, it's what's going on underground. You have got a tiny hardwood stem, 2 hardwood stems, the one on the right was probably burned multiple times, competing with your one single pine stem. And what you want that one pine stem to grow, you want to maximize it and get rid of that hardwood that's out there. So one of the main, and Lee asked me to talk for 20-25 minutes. I can talk for hours on this. This is all I've done my entire career is herbicides. I've peddled chemicals, according to John Ingram. What the main use in forestry is site prep. You can use chemicals for site prep, you can use it for release, you can use it for herbaceous weed control, and we will get to roadside trimming. But the main time it's used in forestry is site prep, whether you cut your track last year or if you cut your track 4 years ago. And that is why I have the second bullet point up there, mechanical prep. So when I started in this business, everything was mechanical. We were just getting into using herbicides. A lot of it was mechanical. What you'll find is if you start to get older tracks that have been cut and laid out and you couldn't figure out what to do with it, you weren't sure what you're going to do with it, or you bought it that way, you're going to have to bring some mechanical back too. So I'm seeing some double site prep needed on a lot of stuff to get trees properly in the ground. So it's just not spray it, plant it, and walk away. You have to burn stuff. You have to think about mechanical. What happens if you're not machine planting, which the majority of the trees are planted by hand, the labor is my height and shorter, and they're walking to the ground and they're sticking the tree in the ground. If they can't get to that ground, they can't properly plant it. So yes, you can spray, but you need to think about mechanical, do them hand in hand. I had a track last year. I simply said, no, I will turn tracks down because chemical isn't always the way. And I said that needs to be mechanically done first, then we'll talk about chemical second. So when you have a track and you've cut it, you gotta have a plan. And if you walk away for a few years, it's a problem. I mean, it's kind of like, if you walk away from your yard work for a few years, it's gonna be a problem. So get ready for it. So you have to think about that. And then I have up the release. I have people that hot plant. They cut it and they go ahead and plant it that winter, and they do no site prep. They need to be thinking about a release that following year, depending on your tree species, because not everything's equal in the world of tree species of how you use chemicals either. But these pictures I have up there, the top left is a clear cut getting ready to be sprayed. Bottom left, it's going to turn brown. Top right, that's been sprayed without a burn. Bottom right, we turned it into a moonscape. That's where we entered the fire, 8 to 10 weeks after the spray, and you've got it plantable. So again, chemical is one part of the equation. Is mechanical needed? Is burning needed? What is actually needed to get those trees properly established? And what's it going to look like next year? So, again, there's a big long process to it, and understanding what a landowner has in his or her mind of what I want my site to look like, and this is what I'm trying to do, is very important on the front end, how we do our prescriptions of what we figure out, how does this track need to look? I had a consultant recently take me to a track that said, we're going to put this back in longleaf, and when we got there, the track was full of loblolly. There was no need to go into longleaf. We had a full stand of loblolly. He didn't know it. I was surprised the landowner had walked away. They had cut it and hadn't been back to visit that track and had no idea they had an unbelievable seed in of loblolly. And those are the kind of things that we get surprised about. You go out and look at something and you're like, did you know you have a complete stand of loblolly? You may need some saw heads in there to get rid of it. So there's just different things you can do. As I mentioned, the workhorse of what I do is with a helicopter. That's the majority of what I do when I do site prep. There's other ways to do it, but the reason I put this label up here is because Lee said, I want this to kind of be something people here can do, that they want to be able to get a product, get it in a tank, go out and spot spray or do roadside, or if it's a small little area and you want to spray it yourself. That right there, the label, is the law. They're long pages, 10, 15, I think the glyphosate is 30 or 50, depending on which one you pick up. The label is the law. And if you have a herbicide in your hands, you have got to learn how to look at a label and understand what you have in your hands. If you don't, that's why there's people like me. You can pick up the phone and you can call and you can talk about it. You can get on ACES, Alabama Cooperative Extension System, and learn a little bit about it. But it's almost like if you get a prescription for, I don't know, something for your blood pressure pill. I'm 52 now, so yeah, I'm on blood pressure. You pick it up at the pharmacy and you have the long label. And it's the same concept. We have labels. So we have to know what are you actually doing? You know, what are we doing to spray? You know, what are you doing for roadside management? How are we going to get from point A to point B to control your vegetation? So I put the active ingredient names up there. Down at the bottom it says pounds AI. That's not artificial intelligence, that's active ingredient. So those are the workhorses of forestry, and that's why I said there's a whole bunch of them. It's very specific. Imazapyr comes under several different names. Arsenal's chopper, with about 4 others. Some of them are 2 pounds, some of them are 4 pound. Glyphosate is Roundup. Some of them are 4 pounds, some of them are 5 pounds, some of them are 5.1, 5.2, 5.4. Triclopyr is another one. You could have 4 pound, you can have 6 pound. You don't really, it's almost like the same as the dosage of your prescription you're getting. Are you getting 100 milligram? Are you getting 200 milligram? Are they prescribing you 800 milligram? They may have you take 4 of the 200s and 1 of the 800s. It's the same concept. What you actually have in your hand is going to be on that label, and you have to be able to interpret what that says so you can figure out what you're going to put in a tank. So those are more or less the suites of the ones that we use in forestry. Those are what you can use for roadside trimming. But understanding how they plug in and how they go in a tank and how you mix them and how they can separate out later. Is it a dry material? Do you need to run it into a slurry? What do you have to do? I mean, it can get complicated, and I'm trying to make it easy, but when I put this together, I'm like, this is not easy. This is a hard talk to get into 20 minutes. So if you're wanting to do some things by yourself, this is the way you do it. Roadside management, or if you want to do a small little tiny field or site prep, if you want to do it yourself, you can do it yourself. Again, you got to know what you're purchasing, what you're putting in the tank, and how you're doing it. ATV, backpack, tractor. Is your equipment clean? Is your equipment clean? Did you start with a clean tank? What was in that tank before? What were you doing before? Are your nozzles clogged? You know, is everything running smoothly in there? Are you calibrated? I do have a slide about that, because calibration, nobody wants to calibrate. People don't. You have got to take the time. I don't know if it's AFOA I think I did a backpack sprayer calibration for y'all one time. You can even calibrate a backpack sprayer, or they do make battery-powered ones that are apparently still calibrated. I don't trust any of that stuff. You've got to do the old handwritten, calibrate your equipment. I calibrated a tractor one time, I'll never forget it. It was mixed, or it had something in it before it, they weren't cleaned out, and I got drenched trying to catch the water, and I got a headache, just like you do, behind herbicides usually. But if you want to do roadside management, glyphosate and triclopyr. Glyphosate is Roundup, triclopyr is Garlon. Those are the two workhorses for roadside management. If you want to come and trim your road inside your woods. All right, now, this is our road. And I've got longleaf trees over here, and I got hardwood over here. All right? Or we're trimming along, and we're going to hit an SMZ. All right, there's a lot going on right there. Now we're in water, and we've got an unlabeled product going into water. And we're over here trimming our beautiful longleaf that we paid money for, or our beautiful loblolly, or we've got these beautiful oaks. We don't want a Mazapir there. Even though Mazapir is wonderful, and it's what got me to where I am today, you don't want that in your tank. You're going to want glyphosate, you're going to want triclopyr. It's just like the DOT. We see them go down the road, and they've got the spray booms going. They usually have 2,4-D in it. I don't recommend a whole lot of 2,4-D. I would prefer glyphosate and triclopyr. But the DOT, when they side trim, that's what you see. That's why you can see part of your branches sticking out over a road. Just the branch is dead. The tree isn't. If you had a Mazapir in there, we're going to have a whole lot of death going on. We're just going to. Or if you go over the top, as soon as you go over the top of trees with either one of those two, you're going to start to melt your trees down and start to hit them. 3 minutes left, Lord have mercy. Okay, retreat. You're going to have to retreat roadsides just consistently. You may do it in May, and you may look at doing it during football season when Will had the football up there earlier. But you're going to probably have to do a few treatments. And one other watch out on roadsides is I think I'm going to skip past that one. Is if it's dusty and you go to spray your roadsides and you've got a lot of dust because we haven't had a rain, it's probably not going to work that well. Look at your rain, look at when you've had rain, look at when rain's coming. If you spray right in front of rain, that doesn't work either. I skipped the last slide because it talks about soil activity and if you get inside the root system of trees and how you can potentially kill large trees, because I wanted to go to this. I just kind of feel that calibrating your equipment, if this is a do-it-yourself crowd, if you want to spray your roadsides, please calibrate. Those two apps, whether they're still working or not, are the two that I have found over time that Clemson does have. But I do recommend go to the ACES website. They will have complete PDF documents with your formulas. That's a formula that I have on the right from one of the articles I did years ago. So calibrate your equipment so you know when you're putting so much out per acre, you want to hit a target rate per acre, and you're not going to do it unless you're properly calibrated in your equipment. So this is my very last slide that I like to end on. Always get expert help. Ask somebody. You can do a lot of damage with herbicides that may not show up for months, but then it shows up, and you cannot take back the damage you do to a tree. Once you kill it, it's not coming back. So always ask for help. Always read the label. It's very important to understand what you're buying, and go to the section where it talks to you about tank mixing and how much to put in 100 gallons of water. Calibrate, clean it, timing. Dr. Google and YouTube. I love when I get YouTube segments sent to me. I don't even watch them. Because if I don't know who that person is, or if I haven't worked with them, I'm thinking they're just out there willy-nilly doing things on their own, and I'm not willing to do that. I haven't got here by just, trying things that may or may not work. I want consistent results every time. And I put in here, I've been doing it since '95, but I'm not as old as that guy on the screen. He's y'all's treasurer here. He's sitting back there with a smirk on his face. Okay, but thank you, thank you.
Thank you. You gonna be around?
Yeah.